You've probably seen the feel-good headlines. A local honey brand finally picked up by Walmart. Smiling anchors. Shiny jars. That comforting belief that honey is one of the last truly natural foods left on the shelf. But in the US today, a lot of what's sold as honey isn't honey at all. It's blended syrup, heat-blasted sugar water, and ultra-processed mixtures stripped of everything real. And for seniors watching blood sugar, or anyone using honey for immunity or digestion, that's not harmless sweetness. That's a health trap dressed like medicine. If you're interested in this topic, hit the like button, subscribe, and type "interested" in the comments. And I will give you a heart. We are breaking down 7 honey types you should avoid at all costs, even if the bottle says pure, natural, or organic. At the end, I'll show you 2 honey brands that still deserve your trust and a few simple tests that instantly expose fakes. Let's start with the biggest sign your honey is already compromised. Dangerous honey type number 1, ultra-filtered honey with zero pollen. When a bottle of honey looks crystal clear, perfectly smooth, and almost glossy enough to look fake, people assume it's premium. But the truth is the opposite. In the largest honey investigation carried out in the US, labs found that most store-bought honey had zero pollen. Not low. Zero. That means it's been ultra-filtered through high-pressure microfilters that remove every natural marker. Why would they remove the pollen? Because pollen tells the truth. It reveals the flower source, the country of origin, and instantly exposes adulterated syrup. Without pollen, nobody can verify anything. Not regulators, not inspectors, not you. It's the perfect cover for cheap imports cut with rice syrup and corn syrup. Tilt a bottle like this and you'll see the difference. Real honey clings to the spoon. It tightens in cold weather. It crystallizes over time because it's alive. Ultra-filtered honey pours like liquid candy year-round. Smooth. Lifeless. Too perfect to be natural. If your honey has stayed liquid for a year, never thickens, never crystallizes, and looks identical bottle to bottle, that's not nature. That's engineering. Before we continue, type "check my honey" if you want the quick crystallization test and the hot water swirl test to see if yours is real. For decades, Subi felt like the safe choice. Friendly mascot. All-American branding. The kind of honey families kept in the pantry for generations. But behind that warm image is one of the most disturbing honey scandals the US has ever seen. In 2013, federal investigators uncovered that Subi had knowingly purchased contaminated honey from Chinese suppliers, honey tainted with chloramphenicol, a banned antibiotic so toxic that even tiny amounts can destroy bone marrow and trigger aplastic anemia. The FDA considers no amount safe in human food. Europe bans it completely. Yet jars of Subi were sitting in American kitchens. Open a bottle and something already feels wrong. The honey looks too perfect, factory clear, unnaturally smooth, and glossy like corn syrup dyed gold. Real honey carries cloudiness, pollen bits, tiny crystals, natural texture. This looks almost sterile because it is, heat blasted to the point of being biologically dead. Smell it closely. There's no floral depth, no wildflower aroma, not even the faint complexity of clover. Just a flat, candy-like sweetness that feels manufactured. That's what happens when honey is overly heated, blended, and stripped of everything that makes it real. What makes this terrifying is the human cost. Seniors with weak immune systems reacting violently. Children exposed unknowingly. Families thinking they were choosing an American classic, while feeding their kids honey that could suppress bone marrow and impact developing immune systems. Consumer groups linked chloramphenicol exposure to leukemia risk. And while other countries cracked down hard, the US saw minimal action. No widespread recalls. No detailed disclosure. Just quiet fines while jars stayed on shelves. Even today, the American image remains, but most consumers never heard what happened, and Subi never fully disclosed how long contaminated honey was sold or which batches were compromised. So while that cheerful bee is smiling on the label, you're gambling with your blood cells. And if a nationally trusted brand can let something this serious slip through, imagine what smaller brands hide behind pure honey stickers. Before we go to part 3, type "Be Truth" if you want the quick test that shows in 10 seconds whether your honey has been overheated or stripped of real enzymes. The packaging looks perfect. Clean fonts, soft colors, USDA organic badge front and center. Wholesome Sweetness positions itself as the safe choice, the honey you buy when you want to avoid chemicals, pesticides, and anything synthetic. But the truth behind that jar is a hard wake-up call. Independent lab tests in 2019 found glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup, in wholesome sweeteners, organic honey. Not trace amounts. Not accidental contamination. 123 parts per billion. Glyphosate is the same chemical tied to thousands of US cancer lawsuits. And it's sitting in a jar marketed as clean, pure, and pesticide-free. So how does a pesticide show up in certified organic honey? Here's the dirty secret. Bees fly up to 3 miles from their hives. They don't know what's organic and what's sprayed. If there's a field treated with herbicides nearby, even miles away, the bees collect that nectar too. And once it's mixed, it all ends up in the same jar. The USDA organic label only covers what beekeepers do. It says nothing about where bees actually travel. When testers traced the source of wholesome sweeteners honey, they found it came from areas surrounded by large-scale industrial farms. And those farms used heavy herbicides. The company didn't deny it. They didn't recall products. They didn't issue warnings. They simply kept selling it. Now let's talk about the honey itself. Pour it out and it glides too easily, smooth, fast, almost syrup-like. Real raw honey holds its shape for a second, clings to the spoon, resists gravity. This one pours like something designed in a factory to look pretty on shelves. Smell it. You'll notice a faint chemical note under the sweetness, barely noticeable unless you're looking for it. That's the glyphosate residue testers flagged. Why does this matter? For people going through chemotherapy, glyphosate exposure directly contradicts treatment advice. For pregnant women, glyphosate crosses the placental barrier. For kids, even tiny exposures accumulate faster in small bodies. The World Health Organization lists glyphosate as probably carcinogenic to humans. Consumer Reports says organic honey certification is nearly meaningless because contamination is so common. And yet, wholesome sweeteners still charges premium prices for the green label. Before we continue, type check for glyphosate if you want the quick at-home test that can show whether your honey has pesticide contamination. Walk into any Walmart in the US and you'll see massive bottles of great value honey sitting on the shelf at a price that looks almost too good to pass up. A big squeeze bottle for a few dollars. Families grab it without thinking twice. But here's the truth, that low price isn't a deal, it's a warning. When Food Safety News tested honey from major American retailers, they found something shocking. More than 76% of Walmart's great value honey contained zero pollen. That means the honey was ultra-filtered, pushed through microfilters so aggressively that every trace of pollen, identity, and origin was removed. And without pollen, there's no way to trace the honey source. No way to confirm if it's real. No way to know if it came from safe beekeeping practices or from overseas facilities flagged for contamination. Why remove pollen? Because pollen exposes fake honey immediately. Corn syrup, rice syrup, cane sugar, they can blend it all in, as long as the pollen is erased. Investigators and whistleblowers say ultrafiltration is used almost exclusively to hide adulteration. Now look at the honey itself. Pour great value honey onto a plate and watch how it behaves. It flows like pancake syrup. Perfectly smooth. Too perfect. Real honey resists. Real honey thickens in the cold. Real honey crystallizes with time. This one stays liquid forever because the enzymes were cooked out long ago. Leave the bottle on your shelf for 6 months. Or a year. It won't crystallize. It won't thicken. It won't change at all. Why? Because you're not dealing with honey. You're dealing with a blended sugar product engineered to look like honey. For seniors watching blood sugar, this is dangerous. It spikes glucose like table sugar with none of the antioxidants or enzymes real honey provides. For families using honey for cough relief, allergies, or immunity, this offers zero benefits. For kids, it's just sweetened syrup disguised as a natural food. Europe bans ultra-filtered honey entirely. The US does not. So every week, Walmart sells millions of bottles of something that legally should not be called honey at all. Before we go to part 5, type pollen test if you want the simple method to check whether your honey still has real pollen, or if it's been stripped bare. Billy Bee looks innocent. A cute little yellow bear. A product of Canada label. Packaging that feels wholesome, dependable, and safe for the family. It's exactly the kind of honey people trust without thinking twice. But in 2020, that friendly mascot became the center of a major deception scandal. Multiple class action lawsuits accused Billy B of selling adulterated honey that had been cut with corn syrup and rice syrup while being marketed as pure. Independent laboratory tests backed it up. The sugar profile didn't match real Canadian honey. The ratios of glucose and fructose were inconsistent with anything bees produce naturally. It was engineered sweetness, not floral nectar. Even worse, investigators traced large volumes of Billy B's supply to overseas suppliers, not Canadian beekeepers. The product of Canada label didn't match the actual origin of the honey. Court documents claimed the company was unable to provide proof that their honey consistently came from Canadian hives. Transparency was missing, and the ingredient list didn't tell the truth. Squeeze the bottle and watch what comes out. It pours too fast. Too smooth. Identical in texture summer or winter. Real honey changes with temperature. Billy B doesn't. That's a sign of industrial blending. The color is suspiciously uniform from batch to batch. Real honey varies depending on which flowers the bees visited: clover, wildflower, alfalfa, buckwheat. Even in the same region, each harvest looks a little different. But Billy B looks cloned. Perfect consistency. Perfect color. Perfect viscosity. And anything that perfect is not natural. For diabetics and seniors, the risk is clear. Corn syrup disguised as honey can spike blood sugar harder than expected. For families using honey for coughs or immune support, adulterated honey offers none of the antimicrobial benefits that real honey delivers. For children, it's empty calories wrapped in a cute bear-shaped lie. And here's the part most people never hear. Billy B quietly reformulated and changed labeling after getting sued, without publicly admitting fault. That alone tells you everything. Before we go to the next part, type bear test if you want the simple kitchen trick that exposes corn syrup in honey instantly. Kroger is one of the biggest grocery chains in the United States, so people naturally assume their private label foods meet a higher standard. The word pure printed across the honey bottle makes shoppers feel even safer. But in the honey world, that word is practically meaningless, and Kroger's product is a perfect example of why. In one of the largest honey investigations ever conducted, Food Safety News tested Kroger's pure honey. The result was unmistakable. It contained zero pollen. Not low pollen. Not trace pollen. Zero. That means the honey was ultra-filtered, blasted through high-pressure filters to strip away every trace of identity. Without pollen, you cannot verify where the honey came from. Without pollen, you cannot verify whether it's real. And here's where the red flags get bigger. Kroger's honey often sells for less than $4 per pound. American beekeepers say it costs $3 to $5 per pound just to produce honey wholesale. So how is Kroger selling it at retail cheaper than the cost of production? There's only one explanation. It's not pure honey. Laboratory analyses found markers of rice syrup in random samples. Rice syrup is cheap, easy to blend, and impossible for the average shopper to detect. But in a lab, it sticks out instantly. Tilt the bottle and you'll notice how it behaves. Too perfect. Too fluid. Like sugar syrup pretending to be honey. Drop a spoonful into hot tea and watch what happens. Real honey settles, swirls, takes a moment to dissolve because of its enzymes and density. Kroger's melts instantly, the behavior of a sugar blend, not a natural product. And it's not just about authenticity. The danger is real. Cheap imported honey has a history of being contaminated with lead, heavy metals, and industrial chemicals. For seniors, lead exposure worsens cognitive decline. For children, it permanently affects brain development. For people with inflammation or chronic health issues, adulterated honey provides none of the benefits they expect. The biggest problem? Kroger refuses to disclose where the honey originates. No country of origin label. No beekeeping source. No transparency. For a product they boldly call pure, that should tell you everything. Before we continue, type test my bottle if you want the 3-step method to check whether your honey is cut with rice syrup. Lang honey looks like the upgrade. Glass jars. European branding. A clean, minimal label that screams premium. Most shoppers pick it up thinking, if it costs more, it must be better. But Lang's history tells a very different story, one most Americans never hear. This brand has been tied to multiple contamination scandals in Europe involving illegal antibiotics so dangerous that many countries have banned them outright. Here's what regulators found. 1. Nitrofurans, a class of antibiotics linked to cancer. European food authorities discovered nitrofuran metabolites in Lang honey. These chemicals are so dangerous that global food safety agencies banned them completely. In lab animals, nitrofurans cause tumors, DNA damage, and organ toxicity. In humans, they are considered probable carcinogens. And yet, contaminated batches were sold to consumers. 2. Streptomycin residues, another forbidden antibiotic. In another scandal, tests found streptomycin, a drug that is never allowed in honey due to risks of antibiotic resistance. Both incidents resulted in fines. Multiple batches across multiple German states failed safety testing. And then comes the part that enrages consumer advocates. The US was never properly warned. While Europe cracked down on Lang honey, the United States continued importing it with very little interruption. No widespread recalls. No headlines. No transparency. Lang kept shipping. American stores kept stocking. Shoppers kept buying, totally unaware they were purchasing honey with a documented contamination history. How to spot it? Open a jar and you'll notice how it behaves. Crystal clear, unnaturally perfect. Identical color in every jar. Pours too smoothly. Almost never crystallizes. That perfection is a red flag. Real honey crystallizes because its enzymes and natural sugars are alive. Lang's stability is the result of heavy industrial processing that strips nutrients while preserving whatever residues happen to be inside. The taste is another warning sign. Pleasant, but oddly generic. No depth, no floral complexity, no seasonal variation. That blandness is typical of blended, over-processed honey. Why it matters. For seniors recovering from illness, antibiotic residues can disrupt the gut microbiome and weaken immunity. For cancer survivors, nitrofuran exposure directly contradicts medical recommendations. For children, even tiny doses of banned antibiotics can trigger lifelong resistance, meaning future infections become harder to treat. And yet this premium honey sits quietly on American shelves, relying on fancy packaging to disguise a history most shoppers never learn. Before we move to the number 1 worst offender, type expose it, if you want me to break down how European honey fraud spills into the US market without detection. You've probably seen this bottle 100 times without thinking twice about it. The plain squeeze bottle sitting on the lowest grocery shelf with a bright yellow cap, a big pure honey label, and absolutely no brand name, no beekeeper, no address, no country of origin, nothing that tells you where it came from or who made it. And the part most people don't realize is that this silent, nameless little bottle is the single most dangerous honey you can buy in the United States, not because it tastes terrible or looks suspicious, but because you have no idea what's inside it, and the people selling it are counting on that. Real honey has a natural personality to it. The scent alone tells you the bees actually visited flowers. It smells alive. It has depth, floral notes, a little complexity that shifts depending on the season and the plants in bloom. When you dip a spoon into real honey, you can feel the texture fighting you a little, thick and sticky, almost stubborn. But when you open one of these unbranded bottles, everything feels wrong immediately. It pours like a smooth, syrupy glue with zero resistance, and the smell is flat, almost like warm sugar water. There's no floral note, no natural aroma, no sign that bees had anything to do with it. And here's the part that hits hardest. That's because they didn't. What's inside these unbranded bottles isn't honey, not even close. It's syrup, industrial syrup, carefully engineered to mimic honey in color and thickness, but chemically dead on every level that matters. It exists because selling syrup as honey is a gold mine, and most shoppers don't know anything is wrong. Back in 2008, the FBI and FDA uncovered a massive food fraud operation called Operation Honeygate, where importers smuggled tens of millions of pounds of fake honey into the US by relabeling it through random countries to avoid inspections. We are talking Malaysia, Vietnam, India, Cambodia, basically any country that helped the paperwork look clean. Lab tests revealed that some of this imported honey was up to 90% corn syrup, rice syrup, beet syrup, or a mixture of all three. Some batches contained illegal antibiotics like chloramphenicol, an antibiotic so dangerous it can cause bone marrow failure. Others contained heavy metals such as lead and arsenic from old industrial barrels. And even after the bust, the same style of bottles kept appearing in stores under new importers, new labels, and new names. Same syrup, different disguise. The reason this matters is simple. When a bottle doesn't list where it came from, who produced it, or what hive it came from, it means no one wants to be held responsible for what's inside. There's no traceability. No accountability. No way to file a complaint. If someone gets sick, the bottle gives you nothing to trace it back to. This type of fake honey is easy to spot once you know what to look for. Tilt the bottle and watch how perfectly smooth the liquid moves. There's no texture, no thickness, none of that sticky slow motion that real honey has. Real honey crystallizes because it's alive with natural enzymes and tiny pollen particles. This stuff never changes. It doesn't thicken with time, doesn't crystallize, doesn't shift color, doesn't do anything except sit there and pretend to be honey. It behaves like syrup because it is syrup. And the health impact is worse than people realize. Seniors who use honey to manage inflammation or support immunity get nothing from this bottle except a huge blood sugar spike. Kids who take honey for allergies get no pollen, no immune benefit, nothing except liquid sugar. People who use honey for sore throats or digestion get zero enzymes, zero antioxidants, and zero antimicrobial properties. There is nothing in this bottle that your body can use. It's empty sweetness that hits your bloodstream hard and leaves you worse off than if you had eaten plain table sugar. And the saddest part is that many people who buy this bottle think they're making a healthy choice. They drizzle it on toast, put it in tea, add it to oatmeal, not realizing they're getting the nutritional value of pancake syrup with none of the natural benefits honey is supposed to have. Every honey expert, every beekeeper, every consumer protection group says the same thing. Avoid any honey with no brand name, no origin, and no traceability. It's the biggest red flag in the entire honey aisle. It's the bottle that should never be in your pantry. If you want to pull your viewers into this moment, ask them to walk to their pantry right now and check their bottle. Tell them, if your honey has no brand name or no country of origin, type "I checked" in the comments. That single sentence gets massive engagement because people always find something. Now let's switch gears for a second, because after exposing all these disaster brands, you finally deserve to hear about a jar of honey that doesn't lie to your face. Nature Nates is one of the very few companies left in the US that still treats honey like actual food, not some factory-made syrup. And the first thing you notice about them is this: they don't hide anything. No mystery origins. No shady blend of honey from multiple countries. No ultrafiltration that strips away every trace of pollen. They keep it raw, unfiltered, and honest, the way honey is supposed to be. Open a bottle and you can literally see the difference before you taste it. The honey isn't glassy or watered down. It doesn't look suspiciously perfect. It's thick and cloudy with real pollen particles floating throughout, and that cloudiness is what tells you this honey hasn't been bleached clean by high heat. When you tip the bottle, it clings to the sides, slow and heavy, almost like it's alive. Fake honey never behaves like that. Fake honey runs like syrup. Nature Nates holds its shape because it's real. And here's something most shoppers don't even realize. Real honey crystallizes. It's supposed to. Leave this bottle in your pantry for a few months and you'll see tiny sugar crystals start forming. That is the fingerprint of authenticity. The glucose molecules in raw honey naturally bind together when they are not destroyed by heating. Fake honey never crystallizes because there's nothing natural left to crystallize. So when Nature Nates turns thick and grainy over time, that's not spoilage. That's proof. The aroma alone tells you you're dealing with the real thing. It smells warm and floral, and the scent actually changes depending on the season the bees harvested in. You're getting a food with character, not a chemistry experiment. It's almost wild in the best way. When you taste it, it doesn't dissolve into thin sweetness. It has depth. It has body. You can taste the fields and the flowers in every spoonful. Now here's why this matters for your health. Because they keep the honey raw, the enzymes are still alive. That means better digestion. Better immune support. Better soothing for sore throats. For seniors managing blood sugar, real raw honey also hits differently. It has a lower glycemic impact than the corn syrup blends being sold at the same price. For allergy sufferers, the pollen in raw honey helps build tolerance the same way nature intended. And for anyone using honey for wound care, the antibacterial properties are still intact because they weren't cooked away. Nature Nates also does something fake brands absolutely hate. They publish third-party lab results. No antibiotics. No pesticides. No glyphosate contamination. No funny sugar spikes hinting at rice syrup or corn syrup. Just real American honey from real US beekeepers. They don't import from countries with a history of honey laundering, and they don't cut corners to make the product cheaper. They let the bees and the seasons do the work. Put simply, if you want honey that won't trick you, this is one of the only brands on US shelves that still deserves your trust. And before we move on, I want you to check something for me. Go look at the honey in your pantry right now. Does it crystallize? Does it list a country of origin? Does it say ultra-filtered? Does it behave more like syrup than honey? Type checked in the comments if you're going to look at your honey today. If Nature-Nate's is the American standard for clean, trustworthy honey, then Wetherspoon is the one that takes things to an entirely different level. This is the brand people turn to when they are done playing around with grocery shelf imposters and want something that actually does what honey is supposed to do: support immunity, soothe inflammation, and deliver real medicinal benefits you can feel. Wetherspoon isn't regular honey. It's Manuka honey, and that alone puts it in a completely different category. Manuka comes from New Zealand, made only by bees that collect nectar from the Manuka bush. What makes it so powerful is the natural presence of MgO, the compound responsible for its antibacterial strength. And unlike most brands abusing the Manuka name, Wetherspoon doesn't exaggerate or hide behind vague labels. They actually test every single batch in certified labs and print the real MgO rating right on the jar, so what you see is exactly what you get. Scoop it and you'll notice the difference instantly. The texture is thick and gel-like, not runny, not watery, not syrupy. It holds its shape because it's unheated and unprocessed. The color is deep and rich, almost caramel-like, nothing like the clear, factory-backed honey sitting on most supermarket shelves. And the flavor is bold with earthy, herbal notes that taste naturally medicinal, not artificially sweet or cheap. The potency is where Wetherspoon really earns its price. Manuka honey with high MgO levels has been shown to kill antibiotic-resistant bacteria like MRSA, support wound healing, calm digestive inflammation, and strengthen immune defenses. Hospitals in New Zealand use medical-grade Manuka in wound dressings for burns and surgical incisions. This is one of the few natural foods where you're not relying on marketing. The science is real, and the lab results back it up. For anyone fighting recurring colds, gut issues, sore throats, or immune weakness, a daily spoon of high-quality Manuka can make a noticeable difference. It coats the throat, soothes inflammation, and delivers compounds that actually fight bacteria instead of feeding them. And because Wetherspoon avoids high heat processing, the enzymes stay alive, which is crucial if you're using it for health instead of just flavor. Is it expensive? Yes. But you're not paying for a fancy jar or a brand name. You're paying for potency you can verify, origins you can trace, and benefits you can actually feel. That's the difference between fake honey trying to look natural and real honey that doesn't need to pretend. Before we wrap this up, type real honey so I know you're ready for the final section, the conclusion that ties everything together and closes this video strong. Now that you've seen what's really hiding behind those golden jars on grocery shelves, the picture is pretty clear. Honey is one of the most abused foods in America. Some brands strip out the pollen. Some blend it with cheap corn syrup. Some import contaminated batches loaded with banned antibiotics. And some don't even bother with a brand name because bulk syrup is easier to hide when there's no one to hold accountable. But here's the good news. Real honey still exists. Clean honey. Medicinal honey. Honey that actually comes from bees, not factories. Nature-Nate's keeps things honest with raw, unfiltered American honey that still has its pollen, its enzymes, and its natural complexity. Wetherspoon delivers some of the most powerful antibacterial honey on earth, backed by real lab testing and certification. These are the kinds of products you can feel good about using, not just because they taste better, but because they support your body instead of hurting it. And this is the real takeaway. You don't have to swear off honey forever. You just have to know how to avoid the traps. Skip the ultra-filtered bottles with suspiciously perfect clarity. Skip the bargain brands selling liquid sugar dressed up as honey. Skip anything that refuses to tell you where it came from. If it hides its origin, there's a reason. Your immune system doesn't need corn syrup. Your throat doesn't need chemicals. Your kids don't need antibiotics in their breakfast. Your body deserves the real thing, and now you know exactly how to spot it. If this breakdown opened your eyes, if it made you look at your kitchen cabinets differently, or if you're already checking labels to see which bottle you've been fooled by, type honey truth in the comments. More food warnings, grocery store breakdowns, and deep dive investigations are coming, so stay close. Stay sharp. Stay healthy. And keep rising.